Hello. Question about the mobile exam came through emails and through students asking, and we promised that we will discuss a little bit what will be on the exam. So here it is, a short video about the exam. I decided to talk about three things. So first, how to study for the exam. Second, how the exam will be structured. And third, how to answer questions in the exam effectively. So first, how to study. You will have to go over all the labs that we did and all the lecture materials. The exam is designed to poke different areas of the course in such a way that there is no strong or weak aspects of the exam in a sense. So various areas are kind of checked. How do we write exam questions? Well, an exam question which everybody knows the answer is not a good exam question, and also an exam question which nobody knows the answer is not a good exam question. The best exam question is a question which half of the class knows the answer and half doesn't. We're trying to aim at questions which are reasonably hard but answerable in such a way that, on average, half of you will get it right. Obviously, designing exam this way is very hard and it takes trial and error because we're obtaining statistics every year from the exam questions that we're posing, and the exam questions that we get 100% or 0% we remove or modify, and the exam questions which we get between 25% to 75%, those are kind of good exam questions, so we try to reuse them or slightly modify them and get similar sort of scores from the student group. This year exam has been redesigned. We've changed a number of questions which we've used in the previous years. The exam is easier in a sense that it doesn't require you to answer long answers. Most of the exam questions are reasonably short. They require some thinking and some analytical skills, but they will not ask you to write a lot of stuff. Most of the exam questions are multi-choice, but yeah, coming back to studying, I will talk about the exam in a minute. So how to study? Review all the labs, review all the lecture materials that we had, check the slides, check what was covered in the course, and make sure that you understand it, that you understand the principles, you understand the core behaviors of how things are structured, you understand why certain things are done, certain things, and how they work. If you do that, then you will have skills to cover probably 75% of the exam pretty straightforward, in a straightforward fashion. The remaining 25 might require a little bit in-depth understanding of certain mechanisms and programming on Android and behaviors. The exam is Android-centric because the course and the labs were Android-centric in a sense that most of you did submit the labs and did the coursework using the Android framework. There are some questions potentially contrasting iOS platform with Android platform, but if you focus on Android, you will gain more than if you focus on iOS. Some questions are generic. They not rely on any particular platform, but most questions are either generic or they require knowledge of Android. All right, so now the exam itself. So the exam will most likely be electronic. We haven't got the final confirmation from the examination office, but we strongly hope that the exam will be administered using digital exams. I never took part in format like this. It's first time when we use digital exam, so I don't know how it will work. I actually don't know answers to many questions you had about whether Linux will work or not. You will have to ask the examination office about it. I will also check. I hope there will be no technical problems during the exam. The exam will last 3 hours and it will have 52 questions. Most questions are multi-choice and multi-selection. So which means if the question is multi-choice, there is only one correct answer, and it's obvious because it uses toggle boxes. So if you toggle one answer, it untoggles everything else. So only one answer can be toggled. The multi-selection questions will have checkboxes, which means you can check nothing, leave all the answers unchecked, or you can check multiple checkboxes. And the correct answer is a variation of those checkboxes. Those are harder than multi-choice because you have to think and analyze each individual statement and think if it should be checked or not. There are also questions which require you to drag and drop certain things in certain order. There are questions which require you to write a short word or phrase. We understand that sometimes those are potentially difficult to understand of what exactly is needed to be written there. We try to make large paragraphs which describe what the word missing is. So hopefully they will be quite straightforward. There are two open questions. So one is a short answer type, and the other one is a coding question. So both are reasonably easy. You will you can get positive points, and also there is a possibility of getting negative points, especially on the multi-selection questions. If you check a statement which is false, you will end up having a negative point. So it is possible to score between -22 to 138 points. So in total, if we shift it, it's like from 0 to 160. But the positive number is 138. So don't be confused. We kind of scoring the exam between 0 and 160, even though the highest number you can positively score is 138. Why do we have negative questions? We simply have negative scores for discounting of the answers which are wrong, because if we didn't do that, then the obvious strategy to pass the exam would be to check everything, right? If there was no penalty for ticking the wrong answers, then the obvious strategy to pass the multi-selection questions would be check everything, and you will score maximum every single time. So that will not work, obviously. If you mark all the possible checkboxes, you will most likely end up with a negative score, because the positive answers will not outweigh the negative ones. We make sure that that's the case. So let's shift towards answering the questions. Obviously, the strategy for marking everything is not good. So one aspect that we did explore with Simon and during other exams is the ability to distinguish between wrong answers which you were not sure about and wrong answers that you were confident about, right? So we did experimented with confidence intervals, with how confident you are. You probably remember from the first semester exam that you could opt of how confident you are in answering a particular question. Unfortunately, with this digital exam, we cannot do that. So the confidence kind of works slightly differently. For example, if you have multi-select question, some selections will be obvious, obviously wrong or obviously correct. So then, like, the confidence for you doing that is, you're quite confident unticking something that is obviously wrong or ticking something that is obviously correct. However, some selections will be, much harder to make. And then if you sort of a risk taker, you will mark them if you think they are correct. But if you risk averse, you will not tick them, right? So for risk averse people, if you're not sure about something, you probably should leave it out, not tick or answer something. But for those of you who are more confident and you know that you are correct or more likely to be correct, then you should tick things and you should answer things, right? So general strategy is if you are more sure about something, tick it, pick it, make an answer. If you're not sure, if you think, well, I'm kind of 50-50, then probably you should not be answering or ticking something because there is a penalty for you being wrong, right? So you probably remember from some of the lectures with Simon the confidence intervals and the strategies of how sure you are of something. So you remember that if you're 75% sure of something, that you should pick the particular confidence interval and so on. So here it doesn't work exactly this way, but roughly speaking, if you're not sure, don't answer. If you're quite sure, answer, and that strategy will work well. The coding question obviously is done with no help, so we don't expect you remembering all the APIs and remembering all the package names and everything and all the class names. So it's more like a pseudocode. So you have to explain why you're doing certain things certain way and what classes would you use. If you don't remember the exact names, that's fine. Just explain in the comments what you expect the class here to be used. We kind of mostly marking the concepts and the logic of the code, not that it compiles and runs, obviously. For the short answer question, it is a short answer question, so don't spend an hour answering it. Focus on the main points and sort of answer what are the main aspects of what the question asks. For all the rest, make sure that you think and you double check things. If you tick something that is wrong, there is no way back. So you have to make sure that all the checkboxes and all the things that you ticked are correct. For the drag and drop, when you're ordering things, there are kind of like hotspots to which you drag the things. So make sure that you did it correctly. Don't leave those answers kind of untidy, because then the computer will not be able to match the hotspots with the order of your answer. And I think that's pretty much it. So as I said, the scoring is between -22 to 138. We scale it to between 0 and 160. The typical brackets for grading have been updated and also lowered a little bit. So we actually grading from 40% upwards. So the kind of the grading scales will be lower than kind of normally using the ABCD grading scale. But we also not sure how the exam questions will work. As I said, the exam has been quite extensively redesigned, so we're leaving ourselves a little bit of a space of an error. So if, as I said, like ideally the questions are answered by on average half, but obviously good questions are between 25% to 75%. Those are kind of a good questions. If we kind of gauge the exam well, then there will be no problem in obtaining the final grades. But potentially we may need to do some small corrections and remove some of the questions that the computer doesn't mark correctly or something like that. So those technical details will happen, after the exam, once we know if something didn't work. We're sort of expecting everything to work correctly. We're quite happy with the exam. I think the exam will turn out to be interesting and turn out to be kind of a good challenge for you. We wish you good luck. And again, I'm hoping that you will not stress too much while preparing for the exam. The exam tests general knowledge. There are some, individual rather tricky questions, but those can be skipped. most questions are reasonably straightforward and relatively easy. So if you know the material from the lectures, and if you remember the lectures, and if you remember what you did in the labs, the exam will be quite easy, we think. Okay, final thing, the exam is it is just like a puzzle. It's like a test. It doesn't go all over the entire material. It sort of selectively checks various aspects of the material that we covered. So they obviously are areas that the exam covers and areas that the exam doesn't. It doesn't mean you should not study everything. So, you know, the purpose of the course is for you to learn and to be skilled in mobile application development. And the exam is just kind of like a verification at the end, which probes various aspects that you know the material has been covered. So I do encourage you to study everything, obviously, and prepare yourself for the future, you know, developers' careers and jobs, where you will have to, in practical terms, demonstrate the skills that you've learned. So once again, good luck. And if there are any further questions or clarifications needed, please do not hesitate to ask me or Christopher. There was a question about Linux. I'm not sure yet if Linux will work in the digital exam. I've heard that it may have some problems with the secure browser that is required, but I will double check and let you know, or you can check with the examination office as well what is needed for the exam. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much and good luck with the preparations. Bye.